SupporTav was brought up in the forests of the Sword Coast, never stopping in one location for more than 10 years before tending to another area. He had a compassionate upbringing and always had a soft spot for those less fortunate than he had always been. After coming of age, he decided to dedicate himself to Ilmater, the god of compassion, perseverance, and the god who is the eternal foe of suffering. SupporTav was headed to Yartar using a teleportation circle inside the Temple of Ilmater. However, he was there on that fateful day. What more could a cleric of Ilmater do than head right into the disaster to help those in need? So here is SupporTav. He is an acolyte. He has spent his life in service of a temple, and he has spent his life in service of Ilmater. We'll get to that later. He is a wood elf, grew up in the forest, and then later went on to become a cleric. So this gives him proficiency in long swords and longbows, short swords and short bows, dark vision, fate ancestry, which is always nice, can't be put to sleep, fleet of foot, so a tiny bit faster, can be a little bit useful, and then proficiency in stealth and wisdom +1, as well as dexterity +2 and proficiency in perception, so he gets a couple of extra proficiencies, which is nice. This is what he looks like. Head 1, hair colour wood tone 4, eye colour elf green 1, hairstyle 15B, which is ginger with highlights of yellow 5 with intensity 29. And he's got a tattoo of the swallows, I think they're swallows, I'm making that up. Tattoo number 1. So he is a cleric, a life domain cleric. Deity is Ilmater. The crying god protects the oppressed and persecuted. His clergy is sworn to alleviate suffering, even if that means taking on that pain personally. So for his cantrips, I've picked up resistance to help kind of potentially alleviate pain, guidance and sacred flame. There's not much choice here for clerics. The spells, he gets to change those at will, so I'm not really concentrating on those right now. But as a life cleric, he gets heavy armor proficiency. We'll see if he gets to use that or not. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Disciple of Life, so when he's casting a healing spell, the target regains additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level, which will be an extra 3 or 4 currently because we only have level 1 and 2 spells, but that's always actually quite nice. Very quite nice, is that really how to say something? So Healing Word will do 1d4 plus 3 from his wisdom plus 3 from this, so 1d4 plus 6, actually quite decent. And his domain spells are Bless and Cure Wounds. So these are spells on the cleric list. However, it's kind of handy having these prepared because it does mean I can actually put other spells on my list. I would normally take Bless. I wouldn't necessarily take Cure Wounds. I often would take Healing Word. I'm still going to take Healing Word most of the time, but it kind of frees up a spot from Bless, which I'll be able to take something I wouldn't normally take. For his skills, I get to make 2 choices. I've picked up History and Medicine, which I think kind of makes sense from his kind of upbringing and his training as a cleric. He's not really particularly charismatic, which brings us to the abilities. So his strength is 8, which is going to affect his ability to wear heavy armor. And this is because he's had some sort of affliction his entire life. The bodies we have here is actually probably more muscular than he would look like if I had a different choice. But he's got middling dexterity, quite decent dexterity and constitution. I mean, just because he's had problems growing muscles doesn't mean that he doesn't have any stamina or endurance. So his wisdom's very high. He spent a lot of time in the forests as a wood elf. Intelligence is slightly above average. Charisma is average, nothing to write home about, nothing to complain about. And so we've got dexterity and intelligence. We've got dexterity and wisdom as his kind of attacking stats because he will be able to wield a longbow or a light crossbow and a short sword, which is very nice to have just a couple of extra weapons to be proficient with. Anyway, next up will be levels 2 to 4. Clerics are kind of easy to level up because they don't get any choices until level 4, but we do get at level 2 Channel Divinity, which gives us the generic cleric Channel Divinity, which is Turn Undead. Present your holy symbol and pray. Each undead that you see or hear is forced to use its actions to flee from you until it takes damage. Useful in a couple of fights, currently in early access, hopefully more useful later when the full game is released. We also get the Life Cleric unique Channel Divinity option, which is Preserve Life. Evoke a healing energy that restores 3 times. It says 3 times 1 hit point. This is actually 3 times your level in hit points to allied creatures. Has no effect on undead and constructs. But the nice thing is the range is 30 feet, which is really big because it's a 30-foot radius around you. And you could probably easily get the rest of your party nearby. And we will be using this to give like a super buff to all of our party. Anyway, that's the only unique thing at level 2 for clerics. Here at level 3, we get no options. We get one new subclass feature, which is to do with spells that are always prepared. In this case, we get aid and lesser restoration, and a bit like at level 1, when we get the spells that are always prepared, these two are on the cleric spell list, which again might seem a bit like a waste, but it does mean you can take perhaps other spells that you wouldn't normally take or take so often. So I'm definitely going to be taking Enhance Ability, Guiding Bolt, Healing Word, Inflict Wounds. Whole Person is great, and one more, maybe Shield of Faith. Anyway, we'll get to spells later, and you can change them at any point anyway. At level 4, we get the usual for full spellcasters with an extra level 2 spell slot. We get to choose one more cantrip. There's only 2 choices because we've got a limited number of cantrips available in the game at the moment, being Light and Thaumaturgy. SupporTav here is going to choose Light to, well, show the light, show the way to those in need, and provide light for people like Lae'zel and or Gale. Then for the ability score improvement or feat, he's going to go with Magic Initiate Druid, because druids are kind of to do with nature. He's a wood elf, he grew up in nature and forests, so, you know, kind of fits in quite nicely. For the cantrips, none of these are particularly supportive. Produce Flame, you might argue, is. However, he's also picking light, so this is kind of a bit pointless. So he's going to go for kind of the classic druid combo, I would say, of Shillelagh and Thorn Whip. Shillelagh, we'll get to that later. Some of you might be able to predict what I'm going to go and get for this. And Thorn Whip, I think, is quite cool. Lets you drag people around. Although the damage itself is 1d6, relatively low, and it only has a range of 30 feet, it does mean you can drag people across and into surfaces or down from high places sometimes. So this is a good spell, not really for damage, but more for just changing up the battlefield, getting people into and out of places. And if you really wanted to, get one of your allies out of the way without taking an opportunity attack, because 1d6 would be a lower amount of damage than an opportunity attack in most cases. As for the spell, there are lots of great options from the Druid spell lists. Fairy Fire is good, Fog Cloud is good, Jump is good, Thunderwave is amazing, Speak with Animals is nice, but he's going to go with Goodberry. He is a Cleric of Ilmater. Oh, doesn't have the tooltip for Ilmater here. He likes to help people, those in need, and just handing out some soothing, lovely good berries, letting people get better, sate some of their hunger. You know, he's doing his good clerical work. So here I am with the items for SupporTav. Most of these items are kind of supposed to be either defensive or supportive in one way or another, with a little bit of utility thrown in. So for the helmet, he's gone for a basic helmet, because he doesn't want to be hurt too much. If he's not alive, then the rest of his party is going to struggle a bit, although we do have Shadowheart, another cleric, but we'll forget about that. Scale Mail +1, this is the best medium armor he can find. We bought this from bought this from Damon, down in the Druid Grove. High Rider's Pride, which gives targets of any healing resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. This comes from Zevlor, plus strength saving throws +1. Also from the Druid Grove, we have Spell Thief. I don't think he's going to use this very often, but it's, you know, I've got a slot for a ranged weapon. Why not? He is a wood elf, so he can use a longbow, or is proficient with a longbow. And also from Volo, we picked up the Whispering Promise, so when SupporTav heals someone, we get a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws, basically bless. Alright, moving on to the kind of the Goblin Camp is where we picked up the next set of items. The Boots of Aid and Comfort. When the wearer heals a target, it gains an additional 3 temporary hit points. And the Glowing Shield, which is kind of just above the Goblin Camp, just behind it. If you climb up to the area above where Crusher is, we get this. A once per short rest, if you are below 50% hit points and take damage, you gain temporary hit points. This is just to try and keep him alive for a bit longer, and it's a shield. Then the rest of this came from pretty much kind of the Arcane Tower. We picked up the Club of Hill Giant Strength, which is to go well with Shillelagh, should he want to use it. Although his strength is now 15, which is really, really cool. So his jump distance is high. His carry weight is high, well, higher than what it was before when it was 8. We also picked up Uncovered Mysteries. I don't think I've actually shown this in a build video before. So it gives the wearer Detect Thoughts, and this is to help the Cleric of Ilmater to detect if someone's upset, needs healing, is hiding something, if we can alleviate their pain and suffering. And lastly, again, I don't think I've actually included this in any build video before, but since I went to the Arcane Tower, I picked up the herbs that Omeluum asks us to, and then we can buy the Ring of Restorative Gravity. When the wearer heals another creature, it is pulled 7 feet towards them. It's not very far, but it could take someone out of range of an opportunity attack. Or if someone's at the very, very edge of a ledge or somewhere up high, maybe we can use Healing Word on an enemy and pull them down, perhaps. But we'll see if we can do that or not. So we're going to get into some fights, see if we can use the Ring of Restorative Gravity. And since we're here, I'm also going to talk about spells, because doesn't need to prepare many spells. Or lots of spells are already prepared is what I mean. So because of his subclass or cleric domain, he always has cure wounds, bless, aid and lesser restoration. And bless and aid I use every single time. I've already used my level 2 spell slot. I've already cast aid because it's such a good spell to cast. Then we get a choice of spells, so we've got a mixture of supporting and damaging spells. So healing word, absolute must. The others are perhaps more up to you, but we've already got a load of the spells from the spell list already prepared because of the subclass. So we've got guiding bolt and inflict wounds just in case we do need to cause damage. We've got shield of faith for more supporting, whole person again for support, and enhanced ability. One slight downside to some of these spells, or the fact I've got 1, 2, 3 spells that require concentration, plus resistance and guidance require concentration, does mean I need to be very careful about which spell I use, because I don't want to be using Shield of Faith and then all of a sudden cast Hold Person, because then whoever had Shield of Faith loses Shield of Faith. Now, having gone through the quest to pick up the Ring of Restorative Gravity from Amelorum, I've also got the Repulsor action. I'm not sure SupporTav would really want to be using this because he's already got his own god, and as part of the there's a set of saving throws you need to pass to get this action, and at one point he called upon his god's power, which gave him advantage on a wisdom saving throw. Anyway, I'm about here. I'm probably going to go and fight the hook horrors actually, and we'll see how well we do. So we came across this hook horror, and in the first round of combat he's very likely to cast Shillelagh just in case he needs it later. No harm in doing that. He could also have cast Shield of Faith perhaps. I would save Healing Word for later in the fight if needed. And since he's trying to be supportive, he's actually going to cast Light on Lae'zel. This probably should have been done before the battle, but I'd forgotten. He knows Lae'zel and Gale struggle with vision, and so now Lae'zel, if she jumps and takes a bit of damage, probably because, I don't know, she's fine. She won't have disadvantage because she's obscured. She can try and hit. And also allows Gale to throw in any spells that require an attack roll. Let's just say Chromatic Orb for the sake of it, because it's quite a good one. Now he's got 75% chance to hit. He would have had disadvantage without this light. And actually, let's send in Acid. No, shall we? Yeah, let's send in Acid. Maybe we can deal some damage to the Hook Horror. Lae'zel's going to be an Acid as well. That's Gale's fault. That's not the Cleric's fault. We've got 2 Clerics in this group. We've got Shadowheart here as well. And because of this light, that allowed Gale to cast Chromatic Orb nicely. We're going to go for a Guiding Bolt. And this Hook Horror is pretty messed up. This is a bit unfair anyway. It's 4-on-1. We would expect to be able to win this quite easily. And so now, he probably doesn't need to be supportive. We can just go into attack things. We could use Concussive Smash. We could just use a weapon attack. I might reserve his spell slots because of the 2 clerics I've got, I would prefer this guy to be casting the healing spells. I could go with Bless. I'm not going to go with Bless because actually Gale's got the Staff of Arcane Blessing, so he's got an even better Bless. We'll save that. So yeah, we're just going to go in for an attack. May as well use Concussive Smash. And there's no harm in him being up close. He's got a fairly high armor class. He's got a good enough high enough hit points. And if it does get too low, he can get some hit points back anyway, or temporary hit points. With a bonus action, we don't need to do anything here. This is an easy fight. This will be over, and hopefully, oh, never mind. I'm gonna say hopefully in 1 attack. We'll go with this. I could have been hiding, but didn't need it. All right, we're gonna go take on the rest of the Hook Horrors now, and see how much more supportive SupporTav can be. Because I want to test it, I'm going to actually use Healing Word on Filro the Forgotten. Not Cure Wounds, Healing Word. Because this should drag Filro 7 feet towards SupporTav. Unfortunately, that didn't work so well, so now we've just blessed him, given him Blade Warden temporary hit points. Don't do that, SupporTav, that wasn't a good idea. Who made you do that? Right. So since our party went down into the Arcane Tower, I did cast Mistra's Blessing from the Staff of Arcane Blessing. And so spell attacks are going to be good. If they could do more damage. So since nobody needs like supporting at the moment, Hold Person could be a good choice, although Filro dies quite easily, so actually just going to go for a whack on the head. So this isn't quite the situation I'd wanted to create, but SupporTav himself is the one that's really hurt. And I'm just going to show off a Preserved Life here. It's not ideal, but it might be too late by the time we get to the next turn of SupporTav. So Preserved Life is going to restore 3 times 4 hit points, 12 hit points to everyone, but we should also see a couple of people moving because of the ring of restorative gravity. And he gave Blade Ward to all of his allies, Lae'zel and Shadowheart. And they now have 3 temporary hit points, which they didn't before. He also has 3 temporary hit points. He gave Bless to himself. Sadly, the Hellrider's Pride is about healing another creature. So he doesn't and can't give Blade Ward to himself. It has to be to another creature. And just to show also, drinking healing potions and even throwing healing potions has the same effect as healing someone else. So he should now be... Oh, look at that. Saved... who was that on the floor there? Saved Lae'zel 6 hit points just from the Blade Ward condition. So kind of preventative healing. Prevention is better than cure and all that. Kind of cool that Shadowheart puts up Invoke Duplicity, which now allows SupporTav to support the party by preventing damage in the future by hopefully killing a Hook Horror. Or missing, because that can happen with an 84% chance. Fair enough. This Hook Horror seems hell-bent on attacking SupporTav. I'm not quite sure why, because normally they go after, or enemies go after the people with the lowest armor classes. Shadowheart currently has Mirror Image. Lae'zel's only at 17. Not quite sure what's brought about the fact that the Hook Horror is going after SupporTav. It's fine, he says. I'm okay. What he's going to do, try and not die, is cast Cure Wounds on himself. For a total of 14 hit points. Not bad. 3 temporary hit points, 17 hit points kind of gained. Giving himself Bless against, well, for any saving throws that come his way, which he has been asked to make some strength saving throws to resist being knocked prone. So SupporTav here has got Lae'zel and Shadowheart close by. They're not hurt, but we are being attacked. So he's going to throw a simple healing potion. But he's going to aim it at himself as well because he is suffering. We can at least give Lae'zel Blade Ward and Bless. Sadly, Gale lost concentration. He did get hit. So having Bless appear on some healing is actually quite useful. So when he does want to do damage with, pure damage without using a spell slot, so a cantrip or weapon attack, we can fall back to Spell Thief because there's also the small chance that he will get a spell slot back. Oh, as if I summoned that myself, so he just did get 1 spell slot back. Amazing. Although he is reluctant to use any sort of ability linked to the Absolute or to the Tadpole, there are times where it is particularly useful. Saving lots of incoming damage by taking out 2 enemies at once. And using Thorn Whip, although this guy is going to die from any damage anyway, had this been in 1 round earlier, it still would have been possible to 1-hit kill that thing, that Duergar, by putting it into the water. SupporTav can see some poor Deep Rothe being whipped and effectively tortured. So he's not having any of that. He's going to bring his party with him. Take a short rest. And then go to town on these Duergar because they're not nice people. So we're all healed up with temporary hit points. Sadly I wasn't quick enough to go into the fight with Blade Ward or Bless, but that's okay. We'll still do absolutely fine. Unfortunately, the Deep Rothe hate us as well. We'll see if we can run away from them. It's a bit sad that Duergar are going after us rather than the Deep Rothe. Nearly killing Gale in the process.
Let's go.
So, SupporTav is going to do this again. He's going to preserve life. We're going to get into a good position. He doesn't mind too much if he takes a bit of damage. Hopefully these guys don't... Okay, they did more than I wanted. But we'll let it come to here. And then we're going to pull everyone together. Bless is all round, Blade Ward all round. And we've got Invoke Duplicity up already. Oh, that's unlucky. Before we do that, set everything up for Lae'zel nicely. Oh, that is very unlucky. Right, he's not concentrating on anything right now, so he's going to give Shield of Faith probably to Gale. He's suffering the most. Since Herdmaster Skyal is dazed, we're going to go for Hold Person. There we are. Which now means Lae'zel is going to absolutely demolish this guy. Nearly killed him in one go, and he's still held. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any attacks left. So I think it's time to bring out Shillelagh once again. And there's a chance we'll kill, what's her name, Morgaia, whichever one. If we manage to hit her. This is where SupporTav really comes into his own. Gale's getting pretty beaten up here. So what we're going to do is use Healing Word to bring him further away from this deep Rothe. And if we're really worried about him, and we don't mind using up all our spell slots, there we are. Not quite full health, but nearly. A few temporary hit points. Blade Ward, bless. He's a happy bunny now. The Duergar are dead. We're trying to run away from the deep Rothe, so we can literally flee combat. I don't know how well this is going to work. Might not have enough time. Deep Rothe can move particularly far. To try and keep Gale as far away from the deep Rothe as I can. I wouldn't normally do this otherwise. Bring him forward just that 7 feet. You never know. It might make a difference. I'll be taking a long rest after this. Absolutely no doubt about that. And SupporTav himself can actually flee from combat. So Gale is under orders to get out of here as soon as we can. Deep Rothe woke up. And he's got Blade Ward, so in theory... Oh, I took 2 bludgeoning damage from falling, fair enough. Right. We're going to get as far away as we can. There he goes. And we've just got Lae'zel left to flee. She'll easily be able to make this by herself. There we are, Deep Rothe saved, even if they are angry at us. So I'm creeping back this way. It seems the Deep Rothe have calmed down, which is nice. Mission accomplished. As I mentioned earlier, but didn't show earlier, we can throw a... Actually, I did show it, didn't I? There we are. I want to give Lae'zel Blade Ward and Bless and temporary hit points. She's gone running in against these animated armors. So it's nice if she has a bit of an advantage, a bit of a boost if we can. Once again, the repulsor ability is going to come in useful. Earlier, Shadowheart cast Bane on these 3 armors. So I'd hope the chance is okay. It looks like one would just fit through this gap. Lae'zel's going to be hit, but she'll be fine in general. Look at that. One down there, quite dead. One over there, a bit dead. And the other one killed and out the way. And we're back to the situation where none of my allies really need any support. So we can go back to dealing damage. And being a cleric... I've not used this yet, but I think it's always a good choice if you can hit with it. He's been a bit unlucky while recording. But yeah, Guiding Bolt. Very good spell to use. It can do lots of damage and gives advantage to the next attack. We'll see if Shadowheart can... there we are. She's apparently a bit more versed in it. And so we're down to the last armor. Lae'zel can jump in. Providing light for everyone. Unneeded critical hit. Easy peasy. So let me know what you think of SupporTav. It isn't exactly a new idea or anything, but it's just been such a long time since I have played a Life Cleric. Would you choose anything different for him? I did choose a mundane helmet. Not the most interesting of choices. And especially what would you have done at level 4? Because I just went for Magic Initiate Druid. So if you made it this far, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.